Hi guys, let's use a bit our Darkest Night friend to show some controller loadout. Essentially, I'm going to do two separate videos. I'm going to do one video for the controller loadout, and I'll make a separate video for the DPS loadout. Trying to cram all of that in one video, not a good idea. So let's get started. So ideally, the loadout that I'm using, let's go through that. Again, that's the loadout that I'm using. It's in no way does it mean that it's the only loadout you have to use and that you cannot use anything else. Maybe if someone has a better version of a loadout that works better. Again, this is the loadout I use, and this is what I find that works pretty well. So obviously, you're going to want to have recharge to be able to give power back to your friends, and also it increase your might and precision for a short while. But that's just a side bonus. What the real use of that power is known as what is known as a power dump. Essentially, you're going to dump power to your friends, to at least three of your friends. Essentially, it's the three players who have the less power in the group. It's pretty much that simple. There's Light Blast, which does a whole truckload of things, but in this case, what we're interested in is that it reduces enemy defenses. I'm going to show you in a bit what it does exactly. There's the group shielding, which, as the name says, it shields your entire group. It prevents incoming damage, and also it restores power over time. So it's one of the essentially you have three powers that allow you to give power back to the group. There's recharge, and there's the group shielding, which is a supercharge, sadly, so you can only use it once in a while. And there is impact, which is your the main ability you will use to give power back to the group. So essentially, you will start impact, and if you go down to control roll. It says that it stuns enemy, which is a nice bonus, but it's not really what we want it for. What we want it for is that it restores power to group members over time. That's the main reason why we want to use that. There's the light barrier, which essentially protects your characters against incoming damage. I will show you in a bit how it actually works. And there's the grasping hand. Again, it does a whole truckload of things. But what we're really interested in is the controller roll, which essentially it reduces the target's damage output and remove damages roll buffs. So let's see what those powers do. So let's start with recharge. So that's pretty much that simple. Essentially, you go through that little animation and you give power to the three players in your group who needs it the most. For a light blast, if you look underneath the aspiring target name, you can see that little red shield. Essentially what you do is you lower the target's defense. And it lasts quite a little bit. So once in a while you want to recast your power to reapply the debuff. So usually you will want to cast debuffs on bosses. You can cast it on ads, but usually ads die so quickly that it's pretty pointless to cast debuffs on them. So you will save your debuffs most of the time for the bosses, although the debuffs usually have other abilities that can be useful against ads, so it's a case-by-case basis. For the group shielding, I will not show you what it does. I'll show it to you with the light barrier. So with the impact, you can see underneath the Darkest Night, you see that little green lightning bolt. Essentially, it says that we're giving what is known as the power over time. So every 5 seconds, we give a bunch of power to everyone in the group. I do have a few videos about the power over time if you guys want more information about that. I will put a link in the video. Also, I have a video about the almighty double tick. Again, if you guys are interested in more information about that, the link will be in the video. So that's what impact does. It gives you essentially gives power back to the whole group in addition to whatever the ability does. There's the light barrier, which quite simply creates a light barrier around your character and will protect it from various things. And there's the grasping hand, which works for two reasons. The first, as you can see, is that you see that little red target underneath the sparring target. That means that we're lowering the damage that this target will do. Obviously, the sparring target will not do damage to us, but normally when you see that underneath an enemy, it means that the enemy will do less damage. Uh, Generally speaking, it can work with most enemies, but there are a few enemies in the game that at some point they get what is known as a damage buff. Essentially, they will get an ability that will give them even more damage, that will allow them to do even more damage. You can get rid of the ability with your damage debuff, and you can lower their damage as well. But also, it works as a pull move. Essentially, that's one of the reasons why I use it often. Sadly, we don't see it here, but normally you can grab your opponent and you can pull it towards you. Works most of the time. Against most bosses, it doesn't really work, but a lot of the crowd control don't really work against most bosses, so that's no big surprise there. So these are pretty much the main controller ability that you may want to have on your loadout. Again, it'll be different for certain players. And also, I didn't show the group shielding because essentially the group shielding does the same thing as this, and it does give power back as well. But it does this for the whole group, as opposed to the light barrier does it only on your character. But the group shielding will shield your entire group the same way that the light barrier pretty much shields you. And in addition to shielding your group, the group shielding will give them power back. So that's usually the main loadout that I use as a controller. For a while now, I've been using an alternate controller loadout, which I call the Debuff Troll, and I usually set up an armory with my Debuff Troll abilities. So I've started essentially making armories for my debuff trolls. Usually it means only a few changes in the loadout. In this case, all I did for this character specifically is that I replaced the light barrier with snap trap. Let's show you what the snap trap does. I'm not sure why we don't see the animation on this little guy, but anyway. So essentially you can see underneath the sparring target this red little heart that appeared. Let's do it again. So what this does is that as long as the little heart is underneath the target's ability, it will have a hard time healing. Most enemies in the game do not heal at all. So for most enemies, the snap trap not that useful. At least not for the healing debuff. But there are keys enemies in the games at various places that do have some abilities to heal themselves. So when you face those enemies, it's a good idea usually to switch to your what I call my debuff troll, and to maybe have some healing debuff as well. So essentially, the reason I'm calling it the debuff loadout is that I have all the debuffs with this character. So you can see I have the health debuff, I have the defense debuff, and I have the attack debuff. So I can apply all the debuffs on an NPC, assuming that I have enough power to do so, obviously. So that's pretty much it for Flashback for today. I will try to do another video, probably not today, but probably later this week, about various loadouts you can use as a DPS. So that's it for now, guys. So thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.